Hey everyone, geophysicist Stefan Burns here. Currently, there is an interstellar object passing through our solar system, the third ever detected. This is 3I Atlas. 3 stands for the third, I for interstellar. Atlas is the observatory network that first discovered this interstellar visitor. It is sweeping through exactly along the ecliptic plane, which is quite bizarre. The past two interstellar visitors, Oumuamua in 2017 and Borisov in 2019, passed through at very high inclinations and only interacted as a result with the solar wind heliosphere current sheet for just a short amount of time. But because 3I Atlas is coming in nearly aligned with the ecliptic plane, it's going to be interacting with the inner solar system, the outer solar system, the sun, everything in our solar system electromagnetically for a long period of time. Now, as you see here in this animation, we see 3I Atlas passing by Mars. It has a very close approach to Mars and also Jupiter. Mars is first, that is around October 1st, where it makes its closest approach, and then it'll be very close to Jupiter around March and April of 2026. It makes a superior conjunction with the sun as viewed from Earth on around October 23rd of this year, 2025. And that, in fact, has some very interesting planetary geometry to it. And so there's a lot at play with this interstellar object because of its unique orbital properties. It's also traveling incredibly fast at about 58 kilometers per second right now. At perihelion, it'll be traveling its fastest around 68 kilometers per second. This is much faster than the other two interstellar objects which were found. And that high orbital velocity is pretty conclusive proof that it originated from outside of the outer solar system, which we call the Oort cloud. Still hypothetical to some degree, but you don't accelerate things that velocity, we think, from the Oort cloud. Meaning that it was launched from some sort of star and solar system forming region, flung out probably at an early stage. Who knows how long it's been traveling through the galaxy effectively. It has this reddish tint, which is what these sort of objects that enter into interstellar space take on. And it has this very wide plasma coma. So it's surrounded by dust, gas, and plasma as a result of it now being in the solar system. And that's very important because, again, it's interacting with the electrodynamic system of our sun, the heliosphere, and more. So in this video, we're going to discuss what we may expect from 3I Atlas coming into our inner solar system, doing a pretty close swing to the sun in October. I think that's very likely to dramatically ramp up solar activity. And we'll also discuss this from a consciousness perspective, because a lot of people are talking about 3I Atlas right now and discussing that it could be some sort of alien probe, or at least we can't just immediately rule that out. We should send one of our probes from either Mars, which would be Maven, or from Jupiter, which would be Juno, to investigate 3I Atlas to get more information. It's a very rare opportunity. But if that passes through the solar system and no alien ships fly out, that does not rule out the fact that it interacted with us in an intelligent way. So let's get right into it. So let's start with its orbit. We see that here with our Sky Live orbital and solar system viewer. And you'll notice that 3I Atlas here is just very slightly inclined from the ecliptic plane of our sun and solar system, going all the way out to Neptune. Now keep in mind that the sun is also moving through space. So technically the sun's going like this and all the planets are kind of wrapping around it. But it's impossible to go through a visualization and actually point at things and explain it as we're doing that. So that actually, in fact, makes it even all the more remarkable that it's doing such a close swing through our ecliptic plane, because that means it effectively has the same velocity traveling as our sun in that direction. So this is pretty interesting. So I have this set for today, August 18th. Let us go forward to the end of September, right when it makes its closest approach to Mars, right about here. You see that? And so it gets very, very close to Mars. though it's still above it. And then if we go forward to the end of October, right around here is when it is going to be cazimi from Earth's perspective with the sun. So I think I have to go back. Yeah, I think it's about the 22nd, maybe the 21st of October. Right about here, we see it performing that superior conjunction. So a superior conjunction when something is on the other side of the sun as viewed from Earth, and it's conjuncting it. And this can take place from any planet or point, but we're concerned about Earth here. And so we have Earth there, the sun, and 3i Atlas. You'll notice, again, it's right on that ecliptic plane. And there's actually some really incredible planetary geometry active here. If I zoom this over like so, and we kind of punch out, you'll notice this alignment right there, Earth, Sun, 3i Atlas. There's also a perfect alignment between Earth, Mercury, and Mars, and a similar angle there connecting Earth and Venus. And they almost make a perfect square there as well. So we often see enhancements in solar activity around notable heliospheric planetary geometry like this. And in fact, we saw a ton of activity with Oumuamua as it passed through the inner solar system, interacted with the solar wind, and passed by close to the Earth. Let's check it out. Here we see the perihelion approach of Oumuamua, and this was exact on the 9th of September 2017. So it started up here and then swung in, passed through the inner solar system, actually cut within the orbit of Mercury, and then swung out. And again, that solar wind current sheet stays in a fairly narrow plane, and so it only cut through that for a little bit. Now the heliosphere extends outwards further, but that solar wind ballerina skirt is pretty narrow in its height. So it cut through that again September 9th, 2017, and notice the position here of the Earth, the Sun, and Oumuamua. So Oumuamua effectively was closing in on the western limb of the Sun as viewed from Earth, because here's Earth, there's the Sun, this right here would be the eastern limb, that would be the western limb solar coordinate system. So pass through like that, slightly beyond the western limb. Let's check out the solar flare activity. Here we have the solar activity in 131 angstroms going from September 4th to the 11th of 2017. Again, that perihelion of Oumuamua, September 9th of 2017. Here's the western limb. Look at all these solar flares that are occurring from these sunspot groups here, specifically that one. Massive X-class flares. In fact, double-digit X-class flares were occurring as Oumuamua passed through the inner solar system at a very close distance within that orbit of Mercury. Now, it's also important to note the year that this occurred. This is 2017. Solar maximum for solar cycle 24, which was a weak solar cycle, one of the weakest in about 80 years or so, going back to the early 1900s. That was from 2012 to about 2014 or so. And solar minimum started around 2019 and 2020. Actually started probably close to like 2018, 2020. So we were at the late descending phase of solar cycle 24, where this sort of activity is super, super uncommon. Yet we actually had the most powerful solar flares of solar cycle 24 during this perihelion approach of Oumuamua. And you'll notice that they intensified as the sun rotated with that sunspot closer and closer to Oumuamua, because again, it was just slightly further behind this western limb there. So take that as a one-off if you want, but we see a very clear connection between extremely powerful solar activity during a time period where typically you would not get that sort of powerful solar activity with the perihelion approach of this interstellar comet Oumuamua. And now we have 3i Atlas doing something very similar, but it will be along the ecliptic plane and interacting with the electromagnetic dynamics of the inner solar system for a long duration of time. And so I think during its transit, we are going to be having elevated solar activity. And that would extend all the way from October through probably about the end of November of this year, 2025. And here we have a very basic animation showing the heliospheric current sheet for the inner solar system going from 2001 to 2009. So this encompasses part of solar cycle 23 maximum and then goes through that minimum phase. So you'll notice during solar maximum, the heliospheric current sheet has a greater vertical height to it, and so extends higher up, but you'll also notice that eventually it does kind of curve back down, and you'll really see that as I go forward here. Now we are later in the solar cycle, you'll notice that the heliospheric current sheet will fold back down. So it doesn't extend infinitely out to space, so there are other electromagnetic dynamics of the solar system at play. The heliosphere does kind of expand out, but in terms of this heliospheric current sheet, you have it just confined to a fairly limited horizon along that ecliptic plane. So you have a comet passing through at a high inclination like this, or maybe it loops back like that. It's only going to interact with it for a short time, but as we saw with 3I Atlas, it's going to be swinging through here for a very long period of time, and it is getting quite close to the sun by cutting within the orbit of Mars. Oumuamua got within the orbit of Mercury, which makes it even more dynamic, but still getting by the orbit of Mars is significant. And the explanation for this and how it's able to cause greater solar activity is due to plasma. Now we're going to look at two images of 3I Atlas, one by Hubble, which is this image, and then another one by Gemini. And so here we see 3I Atlas. We also see these stars. What they did is they focus on 3I Atlas and tracked it, so we don't get it with this motion blur, but the stars get the motion blur, the background stars. You'll notice that it has this envelope there, which is very, very bright because it's reflecting light from the sun. And you'll notice that it has this kind of coma, this larger kind of bubble around it too. So the size estimate for 3I Atlas is quite a bit smaller than the coma. The coma is about 2 times the diameter of the Earth right now. So effectively, this gaseous and dusty envelope surrounding this smaller body of ice and rock is twice the size of the Earth. And the current size estimate for 3I Atlas inside this coma, which is twice the diameter of the Earth, is only 320 meters up to 5.6 kilometers. This is based off of this Hubble imagery, and of course, we actually don't know what the size is inside there, but that's kind of the range, the best working estimate that we have right now, 5.6 kilometers at its widest. And it's this rocky, icy body, unless it is an alien ship. But what happens is solar radiation hits that, causes a lot of ice and other volatiles to sublimate into a gas. And here's where a lot of people fail to pick up the next step in physics, is that, well, the sun is always pumping out a ton of ionizing radiation. This is X-ray light, extreme ultraviolet light. This is also just regular ultraviolet light. And well, that causes a gas to ionize, and now it is a plasma. And so what you have happen is when a gas ionizes, it'll become a plasma, and then there's a certain rate where the plasma will decharge back into a neutral gas. But if there's enough ionizing radiation coming in, it'll basically stay plasmified, and there'll be a percentage of this gaseous body that is plasma. And the closer it's going to get to the sun, the greater that plasmification, you could call it, will be. So we don't know how much of this is plasma right now, but it's certainly not just neutral gas. It is the fourth state of matter. And in addition to that, there's a whole bunch of dust that surrounds a comet. And so this is creating what's known as a complex dusty plasma. Now 99.9% of the universe is made up of plasma, and a lot of that plasma actually exists in a complex dusty state. So you get these very small dust particles that build up an electromagnetic charge because they attract these ions to them. And so there is a certain amount of gas that gets ionized, breaks apart, and then actually those electrons will go fly over and attach to a very tiny micron or nanometer scale dust particle, and so it actually stays as a plasma, the leftover, let's say, cation, like hydrogen, let's say. So in fact, this is a complex dusty plasma envelope surrounding whatever this inner body is, And that gives it very unique electromagnetic dynamics, because what we see in complex dusty plasmas is that they readily form double layers, and they can form hot and cold regions that are very distinct from each other in their structure. They can also form crystalline structures, and they can maintain that structure across time, or they have kind of like this fluid adaptability, which often and kind of seems lifelike. So they have this ability to preserve, and not just kind of, let's say, it gets ionized and then everything gets stripped away. They have a lot of markers of life and intelligence. So we have this very dynamic electromagnetic body twice the diameter of the Earth passing through the inner solar system, and as it gets closer to the sun, it's only going to get bigger and bigger and bigger, more ionized, more complex, and as a result, it's going to be interacting with the electric circuit of the inner solar system, also the magnetic field of the inner solar system. And that very likely is going to provoke some significant solar activity through its approach to the inner solar system, October through probably the end of November. And here's the other image of 3I Atlas thanks to Gemini. And again, we can see that coma right here, and then a little bit of that cometary envelope around it. This is actually the sunward side right now. It's going this direction towards the sun because it's further out. And so that solar radiation is ionizing and causing some sublimation of these more solid and liquid constituents on the sunward side. But as it gets closer to the sun, it should have a tail that goes out in the opposite direction. Though some comets can have a sunward tail. But regardless, it's looking very likely that we're going to see some really intense solar activity as a result of this very large, very dynamic interstellar visitor. But what I think is honestly more compelling is that we're going to be probably seeing some really big activations of consciousness to our entire solar system because of the dynamics relating to consciousness and plasma. And there's a lot of evidence that suggests that plasma is consciousness. And in fact, that everything in the universe is conscious, because consciousness is merely just a result, or at least it's paired with vibration and resonance. This is general resonance theory. And so if this is the case, effectively, we have a interstellar galactic consciousness that has been taking in energy and information from the cosmos outside of our solar system for probably millions of years, doing a perfect flyby of the inner solar system, getting close enough to the sun with that low inclination orbit along the ecliptic plane to interact with the sun, and then therefore transmit perhaps this energy and information that it picked up. And again, with this general resonance theory and plasma consciousness model, then the sun is also conscious, and it's interacting with all the planets in the solar system consciously through solar activity, like these flares, which is what we saw with the Oumuamua. I think it's very likely we get some very big solar flare activity, solar storm activity around that window of October, November 2025, and it's going to be baked in with these interstellar energies. So when people speak about 3I Atlas and it perhaps being alien technology or whatever, and I think the most likely outcome by far is that it is not some sort of alien ship, and the aliens aren't going to fly out of it and attack us or settle down on Mars or Jupiter. I don't think that's the most likely scenario by far. I think it's a super low probability. When it does eventually pass out of the solar system, everyone's going to go like this for the most part, be like, oh, yep, we're all done. The chance of aliens is over. That interstellar influence is gone. It didn't do anything, while in fact, during its perihelion, it's going to be infusing the entire information morphic field of our solar system with that alien intergalactic consciousness. And some supporting evidence for this plasma dynamic as it relates to solar activity and consciousness is the fact that right now we are in solar maximum. And so the sun has these rhythms and activity. Solar minimum has very low output of these ionizing wavelengths of light. And then solar maximum, they go way up, specifically X-ray flux. So here we see solar cycle 23, 24, 25. This is a log scale measuring X-ray flux in watts per meter squared. look how from minimum to maximum of solar cycle 23 goes up multiple orders of magnitude, about 1000x, sometimes more. Then it went back down, here's solar minimum, in between 23, 24, here's solar cycle 24. Oh, guess what? See that spike right there in the X-ray flux? That's the perihelion of Oumuamua, exactly. Because that is where we had those double-digit X-class flares. We punch in right there. Look at this. September 7th, I think that says. September 6th for that flare. And then September 10th for that one there. And again, that sunspot was rotating towards Oumuamua facing. Well, in solar cycle 25 at this moment in time, though we are starting to go down in X-ray flux, we are clearly still multiple orders of magnitude higher in our X-ray flux than we are during, let's say, a solar minimum. And there's also enhancements to extreme ultraviolet light and ultraviolet light too. Though the most stable part of the light spectrum is the infrared, visible light, and ultraviolet light part. But ultraviolet light, extreme ultraviolet, and X-ray flux, and even gamma rays, which are very rare from the sun, they cause that ionization. So 3i Atlas is going to get even more ionized, more plasmafied. It's going to be interacting with the electromagnetic circuit of the inner solar system and of the sun for a long duration, and it's going to do close flybys of Mars and Jupiter and have that perfect planetary geometry with that superior conjunction around October 22nd or so. So big solar activity likely infused with these interstellar galactic consciousness and intelligence and information, and that's probably going to take some time to integrate. We don't know what's going to happen as a result of that, but clearly there is an increased wave of interest in intelligence beyond our understanding and ETs and aliens. And so when this flies out, it's not like that story is over. It's going to have infused humanity, the collective consciousness, and the consciousness of the entire solar system with these very rare interstellar codes. The question I have is, how often are these interstellar visitors passing through? We have 3i Atlas, we had Borisov, we have Oumuamua. That's 3 now in a very short time period. So are these objects a result of some larger force at play, and perhaps there's a wave of interstellar objects passing through? Or in fact, maybe these interstellar objects have been passing through for a long period of time, and we're just now with our modern imaging capabilities finally observing these interstellar visitors. And of course, there's geologic time, millions, billions of years. Obviously, we've had these things happen before. When was the last time before Oumuamua, or the last few times before Oumuamua, that we had these sort of interstellar visitors? And when was the last time we had something like 3i Atlas with its unique properties pass through? Can we perhaps pick up that interstellar consciousness imprint in our history and societal trends and rhythms and forces that are currently at play? That is a question for people to research into. But I find that very, very interesting. But regardless, we're, I think, going to have very powerful solar activity this fall. And then we have some very powerful planetary resonances that click into effect at the very beginning of 2026. And I think as a result of this passage of 3i Atlas to the inner solar system, there's going to be a dramatic shift in human consciousness that occurs. This is a developing story, so I'll keep you up to date with what is happening as we get closer and closer to this close approach, this perihelion of 3i Atlas. I've been your host, Stefan Burns. Please subscribe to stay up to date. Smash that like button to help the channel grow. And get ready for this fall. We're going to have some big solar activity, I think, as a result of this. Some really big boom shakalaka moments from the sun. So if you'd like to help support my work and just in general have a little bit of fun, get your boom shakalaka on, then you can go to my website, www.earthevolution.com/store. Pick up a Boom Shakalaka t-shirt. That's the back of the shirt. The front says Earth Evolution, as you can see here, and it comes in 2 colors. This is banana color, and then we also have watermelon like I'm wearing. Sizes going from small to quadruple XL are available. And there's other things on earthevolution.com as well. You see some all organic herbal loose leaf tea blends here. We have our spirituality tea, our herb coffee. I would definitely pick some of this up. in advance of that perihelion approach of Three Eye Atlas because of all those unique interstellar codes that it is probably imbued with, because spirituality opens up your connection to these larger fields of energy and information. And it also helps you to have more powerful, vivid dreams where this energy often comes in through. And so this is fantastic. 4 ingredients, all organic: purple lotus flower, chamomile, passion flower, mugwort. You steep that for 5, 10, 15 minutes. You drink that before bed or before meditation, perhaps before yoga. And that is something I would definitely pick up before this occurs, because you may have some wow, aha moments, some radical revelations or paradigm shifts. There are other things here as well. Electricity, tranquility, fruit tea, again, the herb coffee, vitality, even crystals. You could pick up some of these super optical clarity quartz crystals. They help to bring these energies in. They're energy amplifiers overall, and more. So again, www.earthevolution.com. Every purchase helps supports my efforts, and I sell all these things at fair prices for you. And they're super high quality because that is just the type of person I am. I wouldn't offer any of this stuff if we weren't making it ourselves. It's my dad and I run this operation here. And if it wasn't all natural fibers, like the shirt, that's 100% cotton. The pirate shirt is 100% linen cotton blend. The best quartz crystals. You can get super optical clarity, all organic tea blends. Quality is no mistake. So get your Boom Shakalaka shirt if you don't have it already. Pick up some spirituality and a crystal to get ready for this interstellar approach. And thank you all so much for watching. I'm wishing all of you well. Please take care of yourselves. Let's get ready for this big approach, and I'll see you all in the next video.